we're demonizing China, and yet China is running rings around us in terms of investing in renewable energy and energy efficiency, and has been for probably 20 years or more.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Leah Dougal, and I am going to be producing the climate monologues in Jackson County, and I'm here with the author, whose name is
Sharon Abreu.
Okay. And so besides being a playwright, you're also an actress or an actor, a singer, you're a climate activist. Is there anything else we should add to that?
Well, songwriter, I guess. I
Okay.
wrote the songs for the climate monologues, as well as, you know, editing down interviews into short monologues.
And you're a singer as well, yeah? Soprano?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
So tell me about the climate monologues. How did it all come together?
Well, I started doing environmental education in 1993. In 1999, I was hearing a lot more about global warming, and I thought, wow, I really need to know if this is something I should be concerned about. I think I was actually even a little bit late to, really, really embracing that subject. So in 1999, I went to a 2-day symposium on global warming at the American Museum of Natural History Center for Biodiversity, and it completely blew my mind and freaked me out, and it was terrifying. And my reaction is, okay, so what can we do about this? So that was in 1999. So I started shifting my partner, and I started really shifting our focus from uh, general environmental issues to the climate crisis, which we were calling global warming at the time. Then we started calling it climate change, because we realized that when you are dealing with that subject, you're actually dealing with every subject. That
Mhm.
climate change, or the climate crisis, which it really is, impacts absolutely every aspect of our lives.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so we focused on that. And we had done a previous show called The Great Climate Caper with local middle school students here where we live on Orcas Island in the state of Washington. And that became a musical review called Penguins on Thin Ice, which we had performed by high school students at the United Nations
Oh, wow.
during the UN Commission on Sustainable Development. And while I was at the UN, I met this woman named Maria Gunnow
Mhm.
from West Virginia, small family farmer from a coal mining family who was dealing with the horrific effects of mountaintop removal coal mining. And I really wanted to tell Maria's story. I found out about another person there named Ed Wiley, who was also living in the coal fields of West Virginia. I wanted to tell his story. I had met other people whose stories I wanted to tell. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to do a one-woman show. I had been in a local production of the Vagina Monologues here on Orcas Island. And I thought, this is very similar subject in that it's an uncomfortable subject for a lot of people. But if you go and see the show, you'll be glad you did. So I called the show The Climate Monologues.
Mhm.
And I had seen Eve Ensler do her one-woman show of the Vagina Monologues. I had gone to see Anna Devere Smith do her one-woman show off Broadway, Let Me Down Easy. I think it was
Mhm.
off Broadway. Anyway, it was either on Broadway or off, but I think it was off. Anyway, uh, very famous actress. She did the show Let Me Down Easy, and I really observed how simple the show was. And that's how I wanted my show to be. I wanted it to be like very, very low demand on energy.
Right.
I wanted it to be an energy efficient show. And so I wanted it to be like if the lights go out, we light a candle and we just do the show. So, and I realized, really what you want to focus on is the stories and the character. So you have minimal costume pieces, you have very few props, just very minimal things, and you get up there and you do the show and you become these people on stage and you tell their stories.
Yeah, yeah. And it's the thing what I love about it being the vagina monologues and then the climate monologues is that everyone knows the vagina monologues and everyone it's made such a profound influence. And yet the climate monologues is more universal than the vagina monologues. And
Hmm.
yet, without focusing on this climate crisis, we wouldn't have a planet to fight for women's rights. Not to like downplay that, but all the other things that we need to fight for. And what I'm discovering as I'm, going through and like starting to promote this with the GoFundMe is how low of not interest, but like there's a low vagina monologues, it was like immediately, oh, you're doing this, oh, I can't wait to see it. Whereas this, the idea of the climate change and climate crisis, I don't know why, but people seem a little bit, it seems more daunting. Do you know why that is with people? Why they seem a little bit more reticent?
Well, I think it affect, like you said, it affects everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody could say, well, vagina monologues, violence against women, that's very important. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect me.
Right.
Whereas with climate crisis, it does affect me, and I am being asked to change the way I live.
Yeah.
And that's very scary. And the effects that I'm being told are going to happen are so scary. I'm just going to tune out and not pay attention and pretend it's not a real thing and there's nothing I can do about it. It's just
Yeah.
easier. And especially the way a lot of environmental educators approach the subject.
Uh-huh.
They approach it and they give all this bad news before they
Uh-huh.
say anything hopeful or encouraging. And so people will psychically tune out or physically leave the room before they
Uh-huh.
say, hey, you know what? There's something we can do about this,
So
or
is
there's
there
a lot of
hope?
things we can do about this. Yeah.
So there is hope. There is hope because that's the other thing. Oh, so there is hope for change. Because when I was coming up in the 90s is when I was like starting to be conscious. I was a little kid in the 80s and then I was in the 90s. I was like a preteen, teenager, all the thing. Came of age in the 90s. And that was the first real like I grew up with the whole environmentalism consciousness. We were starting to recycle. We were starting to talk about global warming. We were planting more trees. Like I think it was my fourth grade teacher took us out and we planted a tree and in the front of our elementary school. So it was like something we're starting to talk about, and yet here we still are. So there is still hope. Can you
Yeah.
talk about one ways that there is hope? Like what?
You know, like I told you, I started doing climate change education in 1999.
Uh-huh.
So that's how many years ago now? 26 years ago?
Uh-huh.
Back when I started doing it, we were telling people every little thing you do makes a difference. Recycling, changing out your light bulbs,
Hmm.
maybe driving less, maybe combining your errands so you're driving less.
Uh-huh.
Or maybe take your bicycle out once in a while instead of driving somewhere, or whatever that is. And all those little things, we said, this is what you can personally do to make a difference. And since then, I came to really understand that although those things are still important, they're not enough. That
Uh-huh.
we need to change the political landscape. And of course, we've slid backwards. We slid backwards through the entire Bush-Cheney administration. Can I say that?
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not,
fine.
I'm not trying to be partisan. I'm just saying you put
Yeah.
two oil men in the White House, and that's what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah. No,
know,
you can be yourself. Whatever your beliefs are, yeah.
you know,
As long as
and
they're not gonna kill someone, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
yeah, and we're still at that point where we're demonizing China, and yet China is running rings around us in terms of investing in renewable energy and energy efficiency, and has been for probably 20 years or more.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you you know, I we need to change the mindset, the politics, who we vote for, what we insist on. And, people say, well, you have to compromise. And I'm like, yes, you have to decide on where the point of compromise should be.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
How do we try to, beyond voting and maybe supporting candidates or causes financially or whatever like that? How do we help educate people with both the notion of hope and also the notion of what we're supposed to do?
okay.
Beyond,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously this play.
I didn't quite answer your last question, actually. My attitude is that where there's life, there's hope.
Okay.
I am not one of these people that says, well, it's too late. There's nothing we can do. Oh, well, go home and hug your kids. There are people that do that. I'm not one of those
Yeah.
people. I'm like, it's bad. It's, we're feeling the effects of it all over the world. But what can we still do to, on the one hand, mitigate the impacts, on the other hand, educate ourselves about how we can transform this society so we're not only responding to the climate crisis, but we're actually improving quality of life for people.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like and that's why, like when I did the climate monologues, the thing for me was to really show the humanity of people, the
Uh-huh.
humanity, the great ideas, the energy that people were putting into the work they were doing for positive change for themselves and their children and the whole society. You
Yeah,
know,
and it was what I got from it when I read it was the notion of how it affected them personally and how
Mhm.
that caused them to want to impact change. They didn't sit hopelessly. They were like, "Wow, I've seen these differences," you know. I mean, and just today, I got a notice on my phone that says like they keep power gets turned off a lot, especially this time of year around in Southern Oregon and I think California because of fire safety. And I got a notice that there it was the city over Medford. They were saying monitor your water because we turned out the power. And then, we also got a notice that we're going to get flash floods potentially today and tomorrow, and then also lightning strikes. And then, that's not, so these little like things are happening, like,
they're happening to you right now.
yeah, yeah,
You
it's
know,
happening.
and they're happening here too. I mean, I think we're a little more temperate where we are
Yeah,
generally, but man, it's really scary to see what's going on in so many parts of the country. And,
yeah.
I wrote this little song back in 2002 when we first did the Great Climate Caper, and it was Mama Earth singing, "What do I gotta do to get your attention? What do I gotta do to be heard?" Screaming winds, pounding rain, snow way down south. Don't you think it's insane? Floods 1 minute, droughts the next. Aren't you just a little perplexed? So,
Yeah,
just trying to write the stuff that's entertaining and catchy, but also kind of gets the
gripping.
point across. And,
Yeah.
I don't know why, some people are like, oh my God, we have to respond to this. And a lot of other people are like, nope, it's going to go about my life. I'm staying in
Yeah,
my comfort
yeah,
zone for, as long
I
as I
think
can.
that there's I try to have compassion because I think there is so much going on that there's a lot of fear. And then it's like, well, what do I put my energy to? And then if there is an element of um risk financially, when your mind is focused on trying to pay your bills, it's sometimes harder to look at all the other things. And then
Yeah. Oh,
on top of
definitely.
it, with the partisanship, the fighting back and forth, and I'm not saying that we need to make friends or be okay with hate, but there are people that are on the right and that are on the left that are a little bit more open to dialogue than we allow that to be. And I think there needs to be a sense of, and there are people that have been a little bit more manipulated that are actually a little bit more reasonable. I don't know. So there's an element of kind of seeing, I think, our own humanity. And this is like your interview, but I like talking, I get inspired.
Okay.
So
That's
there's like a compassion that I have. I understand that it's daunting, and I understand that we all have there is stressors right now in our own lives, and you know on top of that there's all these things that are happening in our own country, and I'm just talking United States, there's also in other aspects of the world, and so it's daunting and it's scary, but I think something like this, like how many times have you produced, so you did it as a one woman show, and then you were saying that there was some children or high school students in India that did some of it?
in Thailand.
Okay.
In Bangkok. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me just respond to what you said there. Yes, I also have a lot of empathy for people because this is a huge topic. It's overwhelming, and so many people are just struggling to get by day to day. You
Yeah.
know, I have, for whatever reason, and I don't really know what that is, but I seem to have the luxury of really focusing on this.
Yeah, yeah,
There's things I have given up in order to do that. And that's okay because that's where I was, really moved to go.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and so I'm not at all sorry for that.
Uh-huh.
And I've had fun and met great people in the process. And I know people have really appreciated the shows and the messaging. So I'll tell you, I started doing the climate monologues. I started putting the show together in 2009.
Uh-huh.
And because I met Maria Gano in 2006 or seven, I think it was 2006. And I'd been thinking about it, and I said, that's it. I'm going to contact her. I'm going to ask her if I can interview her for the show. And one of the first things she said to me that it just really broke my heart. She says, the town that I live in is called Bob White. It was
Mhm.
named after this bird that we don't see anymore.
Yeah.
This
Uh-huh.
where they're blowing up these mountains is where the Bob White quails nested at. you know
Yeah.
and there's something about I had to tell her story. And that was part of her story. But
Yeah.
so then I thought of other people like Robert Athakal, who is from India. He's a Jesuit.
Uh-huh.
I knew
Oh, yeah.
him from. Hmm?
That's where I got India in
That's
there.
good. Yeah, so I knew him from the UN
Uh-huh.
because he would attend the UN Commission on Sustainable Development meetings in New York. And so I interviewed him, and it was so much fun interviewing him because he's such a jovial,
Uh-huh.
upbeat kind of person, and he's an environmental educator in India. So
Uh-huh.
his story was really interesting to me.
Uh-huh.
And then there were other people I just decided that would be good to bring into the show. So I started adding to the show, adding a little bit at a time, and I premiered it here on Orcas Island at our Grange Hall in 2010.
Nice.
And then I performed excerpts at the City University of New York Graduate Center they had an environmental program there in
Uh-huh.
2011, and I won their Spirit of Nature Ecology
Nice.
Society Award, which was really cool.
Yeah.
And just kept doing the show. So I don't know how many performances that I've done. I've done several, I would say at least several dozen
Uh-huh.
performances in New York and
Uh-huh.
Florida, Massachusetts, California, various places in Washington State. I would like to do more, but I am very, very pleased that people have contacted me because my partner, who's sitting on the other side of my machine here, Michael Hurwitz, he created a really nice website for the climate monologues, and people started finding us online
Yeah, and the
and getting in
videos, the
touch.
YouTube videos. Yeah. Yeah, I know. So would this be the first kind of uh non one person show? It'd be like, because that's what I'm hoping is to do it similar to what the Vagina Monologues became, what Eve Ensler opened it up to be, is
Mhm.
having a cast, this time mixed genders, obviously. We don't need to
Yeah.
just have one with people with vaginas. It could be anyone. Would this be the first time that that ever happened?
No, because some of the groups that contacted me, which included a theater group at the University of Pennsylvania
Okay.
and the International School in Bangkok,
Okay.
Thailand, they had various students do various monologues.
So, well, it's the first time is it the first time premiering in Oregon?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it would be the Oregon premiere. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's still relatively newer. It's been around almost, well, no, so 2009 and then 2019, 10 years, about 14 years it's been active, which is
Of
Vagina
history.
Monologues was in the 90s, somewhere in the mid 90s. So it's a
Hmm.
little younger than the Vagina Monologues, but
Oh yeah.
still relatively newer. So yeah. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, like I said, I was in a production of the Vagina Monologues here where it was a multicast,
Yeah, yeah,
multi-person cast, and it's like everyone was exactly perfect for their monologue, and
yeah,
it really
yeah.
inspired me to do the climate monologues.
Yeah, that's what I really like about it because I did the Vagina Monologues. Well, I've done the performed in it at least 4 times. And then this last March, I directed and produced it as a benefit for Planned Parenthood because I knew that's what I wanted. That's one of the things I wanted to do. And I had I had mostly women and then the non-binary and a transgender person. And I included more like I had them, this one woman wrote about menopause, and I had it kind of right after the period one. And then the had a someone the non-binary person wrote about being a person with a vagina that's doesn't see themselves as women. And then I actually had the transgender one. I've never seen it with a woman that was transgender. So that was really powerful. And what I liked about it is that I didn't necessarily, and I feel with the vagina monologues, is it doesn't necessarily have to be people that are like professional actors. It doesn't even
Oh,
have to be
no,
actors.
no.
So is that something that you would be open to with the climate monologues if I auditioned and people
Yeah.
came in? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because that's what aspect that it makes it more community, you know. And right now in Ashland, there's a lot of community theater in the Rogue Valley, as you would imagine, with just like it's a huge theater world in
Yes.
down here. But there in Ashland, there is obviously Oregon Shakespeare Festival, Oregon Cabaret Theater. There's a newer kind of more professional theater called the Rogue Theater Company. The community theaters are not in Ashland specifically, they're in the cities over. So I would like to do, like I did the Vagina Monologues, I would like to do another something like this here to have that kind of community theater aspect. Nothing against the more professional theaters. It's just it'd be nice to have a little community theater. Um, and I generally speaking, do more film and content creation online. So I'm just doing theater. I mean, it just seems very powerful to do to do this. So I'm really excited about it and some of the incentives that we've discussed to for donating. Do you want to talk about the book that is the incentive? Um, the donation, if somebody
Oh,
donates
yeah.
$5, they will get there's 4 copies, so people have to like hurry up and get their $75 in. But if they get the $75, they will get.
Yeah, they will get a signed copy of a book that's called A Song to Save the Salish Sea.
Okay.
And it was written by a professor at the University of Minnesota named Mark Peddlety. And Michael and I, my partner Michael and I met Mark when we were doing music for the annual picnic barbecue fundraiser for the San Juan Preservation Trust here on Orcas Island. And he heard our music and said, "Oh, I'm an eco-musicologist. You
Uh-huh.
know, I want to put you in my book." So he put us in his first book, Ecomusicology. And then in his second book, A Song to Save the Sailor Sea, he devoted a whole chapter to the climate monologues.
Nice,
I
nice.
ordered some extra copies of that book. So I have 4 copies and I am having them signed.
Uh-huh.
And they will be one of our premiums for raising the funds to put on this production of the climate monologues in Ashland.
Yeah, and the just I know this will be part of the GoFundMe and it'll be all over YouTube and everything, is what I'm thinking. But the proceeds that we're running on the GoFundMe are for the venue space and then also to donation towards your organization, um, so that we have the privilege and the right to produce this play. It's like as a thank you to you. So do you want to talk about Earthlings? That's a
Oh,
fun one
sure.
to do.
Yeah. Well, Michael and I started Earthlings as a tax-exempt nonprofit in 2002. The full name is Earthlings Arts-Based Environmental Education.
Uh-huh.
And
And it's a
Earthlings,
spelling is different. It's
it is.
IRTH. Yeah.
That's right. IRTHLINGZ.
Okay.
That's how we spell Earthlings, and that's how we were able to get a website. We have to get
How did
creative
you,
with the
why
spelling.
did, so is that why you chose Earthlings like that? Or why did you choose to spell it like that?
I don't know. I just thought I'd like us to be called Earthlings, but of course, there are other organizations that use that name. So we just decided to get creative with our spelling, and we were able
Oh,
to get earthlings.org. And we also have earthlings.com, which is more of us as a musical duo.
uh-huh, uh-huh,
But Earthlings, IRTHLINGZ.org is the Earthlings Arts-Based Environmental Education website.
uh-huh.
And, we appreciate a donation for using the show. We don't have like a specific licensing fee. I like to talk to people that approach me about doing the show, find out, who they are, what they're planning to do, and just go from there.
Right, right, right. That's something that we agreed upon, and I also wanted to make sure people know about that, your organization. Once the show is similar to Vagina Monologues, the proceeds from the ticket sales, half of it will go towards this local organization, Southern Oregon Climate Action Network.
Right.
So, and I've already emailed them and let them know. They haven't responded, but they will. Like, what? What are you doing? And
Make
they,
sure that
as in similar to the Vagina Monologues, this is a featured artist event, which is a new sort of offer of my business, and where you highlight a certain whatever, you highlight the business itself, and or you highlight a certain artist, and the featured artist at the event will be SoCan. So they'll come up before the show and they'll talk about themselves, and then they'll also have a little booth there. And I'm hoping to have a couple other booths if there are anything locally that can talk about, uh, what they're doing. So, similar to the Vagina Monologues, but with more environmentally conscious focus. We should, yeah. We will have another incentive that we're working on, and we'll have more information on that. So we'll promote that as well when it comes to it. Anything else you want to add?
just in terms of a hopeful vision for the
Uh-huh.
future, I'm just going to mention that I took a course earlier this year called Introduction to Regenerative Economics.
Uh-huh.
And, for me as like a singer, songwriter, actor, musician to get excited about this kind of course, it's kind of funny. But it's really, really interesting. It's a very holistic approach to where I think we need to go. So I,
Uh-huh.
I just recommend this course called Introduction to Regenerative Economics that is offered through an organization called the Capital Institute.
Uh-huh.
It's very holistic. It's a shift, not only requiring a shift in consciousness, but a shift in how our economy functions, rather than functioning like a machine in which we are basically all, cogs in that machine. It's very extractive. There's nothing except growth that has value. It totally shifts how we view the economy and how we structure the economy so that it would be really function like a living system rather than like a machine.